This week on Intrigued, Full Effect.
He was all alone, even through that process. And he just took a really long journey by himself.
I'm Chandrea Thomas, and welcome to episode 21. In this podcast, I talk about curious cases, disappearances, and other stuff. And today I'm talking about the September 2017 disappearance and death of 14-year-old Jabez Spann from Sarasota, Florida. This case has a lot of layers of tragedy and mystery surrounding who's responsible for his disappearance and death, and what do people in the community really know about what happened. I spoke to his mother, Tawana, and his stepfather, Joe, via Skype about the case, the recovery of his remains, and the aftermath and healing process. This is what happened.
So as far as the day that your son disappeared, so you were tracing his steps that day and trying to figure out where he was and who he was with. So tell me more about that.
Jabez was at a cookout with some family members. My mom said he went down to the cookout. Everybody said he left the cookout and nobody seen him after that. So my mom called me the next morning because he hadn't been to school and was like, hey, you need to try to come find him because he hasn't been to school. And it was unlike Jabez to miss school, so we knew something was wrong.
What do you know about what his activities were on that day or anything like that?
Well, once I started going back to find out exactly what was going on, I retraced his timeline up to pretty late that night. He was at the party, he left the party, and he went to go play basketball. So when
he left the family party, just to make sure I'm clear. So he left the family party.
Yes, to go play basketball with some of his friends. He went down to the basketball court. I guess he didn't have on the right shoes because he had on some slides, which everybody at the party was saying that he had on these same slides too. So he left. They said he was going to go get some shoes. Nobody heard from him after that. So when I traced his steps back, he actually was with some young men later on that night. Someone had said, hey, we've seen these kids with him. So I went and found the kids. And when I got to the young man, he didn't know because he thought that they had been on videotape. And when I got to the young man, I was like, hey, I know you were with Jabez. I have witnesses that you were with Jabez, and it's on video that you're with Jabez. At that time, we really didn't know that the video wasn't going to come into play like that. But in his mind, he still thought he was that he was in the video. So I was like, can you just tell me, like, where did he go? What did he have on? And then he just screamed at me. He was like, I don't have anything to do with what happened to Jabez. And at that moment, it becomes surreal to you that, something's not right. So I just kind of remember when he yelled it like that I jumped in the car, and it was almost like my body was kind of lifeless because I drove to the police station. And when I got there, I just collapsed because at that moment, I kind of knew, like, this is not going to end up to be a good situation. I continued to, search diligently. But when he came up missing, what happened was he came up missing on the 4th, on Labor Day, initially. Nobody really got he wasn't able to be up under Amber Alert because he wasn't in an imminent danger that anybody could see. So they couldn't put him under Amber Alert. And right after he went missing, Irma hit. So It was like the police that Tuesday he came up missing. That Wednesday they reported him as like serious because that's when they had found out, like, they were hearing that he had witnessed this murder. The police was trying to evacuate make sure the city was maybe have to be evacuated. So it was like, I can't say that they put him second to none. It was just the priorities, and it was like the perfect storm.
And what about leads? According to local media reports from earlier this year, police have not officially confirmed a connection between the death of Jabez and Travis Combs, but the family is convinced the connection is there.
When they were like, well, they're saying Jabez witnessed the murder, and I'm thinking to myself, he had said this to all these people, and not nobody, because that night that he witnessed the murder, when Travis was actually laying on the ground, Jabez admitted that he seen the murder in front of several people at the scene of the murder.
Let me just kind of rewind this a little bit, just for those who may not have any idea of what happened with Travis and with all of that. Okay, I want you to explain to me, what murder is it believed that he saw? What do you believe took place after that? So when you say, and actually, let me just ask you this really quickly. Okay. The murder of this individual that is believed to have seen, what was the time frame between that murder and when your son disappeared? So just kind of go through that so people who don't know about the case can understand what's happening.
Okay, so approximately a week before. I mean, just they were a week apart. The week prior to Jabez coming up missing, we had a young man in the community, Travis Combs, that was murdered. Okay, they robbed, they killed him, they took his car, whatever else they took. And Jabez just happened that night. My mom noticed it because Jabez was going. I guess they have like this little store that they can go to where the little lady sells the candy and the sodas. Well, he said he was going to get a soda, and my mom said she heard the gunshots. And when she ran out the door, she seen Jabez coming from not down the street that Travis was on, but he was coming off the opposite street running. And she asked him, she was like, "Did you see anything?" And he told her no. But when he was at the scene, and I've talked to people, when he walked down, when the cops got there and everybody was out there and all the community was out there, he told several people he knew who had killed him and he seen it. Nobody ever came back and said, one lady told me, she was like, he said that he seen it, but I told him to hush his mouth, don't say that no more, to be quiet. But and that's not even just one person. It was a numerous amount of people that knew. Then we were asking his friends, which I know a 14-year-old is not going to hang around his friends and know that information and not tell it to somebody. If you told it to somebody, if you were talking about it in a crowd of people, you definitely are going to talk about it with your private circle.
Okay, and just to be clear, did your son, was he ever involved in anything? Did he ever have any trouble with anyone? Is there any particular reason why someone would be targeting him aside from what you believe is the shooting situation?
No. And like I said, I did due diligent work on this case, and everything that's here, everything is leading up to just one particular spot. It is no other leads to anything else. It leads to this particular moment when Travis was killed, and I think that they were in fear because Jabez was very close with Travis, because Travis is actually, my brother has kids with his cousin. So that's how he was down at the cookout that day. All of us know each other. So it's not like it would be far-fetched for him not to know exactly who it was, who Travis was. So that night, I mean, when they told me he had witnessed a murder that night, and for a whole week, this community went through, and I'm not saying it wasn't because of fear, because I it took me a long time to get there, but basically they didn't come back and tell information that could have probably saved his life. And then because they didn't say anything, they let his body lay there for a whole year and a half. A whole year and a half. We will never be able to see. We would never be able to see an open casket, anything from that. So we as we were searching, as we were looking, we had a witness come forward. Came and talked to my mother. He came and talked to my sister. He came and talked to my private investigator and told the names of the people that had robbed Travis. Told him. My mom them had, he was like, I'm going to walk down there. 2 days later, the police got in contact with him, and he said he hadn't said anything. And you told 3 individuals who it was. Name the people.
So what it boils down to is you believe that there's this fear of snitching or the whole idea of that, and maybe people are just afraid to come forward because they're thinking they're going to have a target on their back too or something? Or I mean, what do you think about that?
I mean, I think people have to understand, if a person can look in the eyes of a 14-year-old and kill them, that's a different type of beast. That's just a totally different monster from my standards. I mean, at one point, he had to at least maybe beg, maybe for his life, with nobody being there. Like, I think that's probably one of the main things that could hurt anybody with a child that's either missing or, you're not there to protect them in their final moments, and the people that were said to have hurt him, he trusted them. He trusted him. He didn't think his life was in danger like that.
So he
wouldn't have been out playing basketball and going to parties. If he felt like he was in danger by any of them, he wouldn't have been doing all that.
So you believe that your son knew his killers?
I believe he knew his killers. Definitely that. I believe that it was I believe that the people that he, some of the people that he trusted the most, is the ones that put him in the predicament to be killed.
So now this was Labor Day weekend. So when did you find out that your son's body, his remains were found, and what happened then?
We found, that weekend, he was found the 16th. I didn't find out until the 19th. But that weekend, I remember getting an odd call, and I was like, wow, that's odd. The question that was asked by the detective. And I really can't elaborate too, deep on that. So that Monday, I was still calling and like, hey, I got clues, because if people understood the magnitude of the 18 months of searching for Jabez, it's unreal, the turmoil that people take you through. So that Monday, I was still deep in like, I had never given up, I had never stopped or anything. So she called, I think it was that Tuesday, and she was like, are you at your mom's house? And she had never asked me that, and it was late. And I knew. She was like, well, can you be down here in like an hour? So that whole ride down, I was telling Joe, I was like, she's not going to call me down here for nothing. And so when I got there, we were all sitting outside before they came up, and my mom just was shaking. And I knew by the way, when the detective that had been looking relentlessly with me, I knew when she looked at me like, yeah, we're gonna have to tell you this. And so when they said it, I don't even know if I responded correctly. I still was just so in shock. I was like, where? Because I had looked for him everywhere. Like, where was he? And One of the main things, the reason I wanted to find him is because I didn't want his body to be discovered without somebody being there with him, just in case they found him. And he was all alone, even through that process. And he just took a really long journey by himself. His body, his spirit, he just took a really long journey by himself. And I remember my sister calling me one day. I was in the woods, and she was crying so hard. And she told me, she was like, you know, I should have did this and I should have did that, and I carried that too with us. You know, we all carried that, like it was our fault that it had happened to him. And I had to literally snap out of it and tell her, like, there was no decision that none of us would have made to cause this. You know, some of the community, I remember being at a basketball court, and I was asking the kids, the ones that had seen Jabez at the basketball court, one of the last times people had seen him, and one of the little girls told me, she was like, my mom said maybe if you would have been a better mom, he wouldn't have been dead. And I'm just like, I'm not going to carry that burden. I got enough to carry. I'm not carrying that burden with me. The decision to take Jabez's life was solely on people that were desperate not to be caught by a whole nother crime. And they took him and the future that he had for himself. And that's the only thing I'm mad about. Like, you took all his memories that he was supposed to create. When I was going through the whole situation, I was upset with God. I just wasn't feeling him. I didn't want to talk to him. I didn't want to be friends with him. And I grew up in the church. But I just could not reckon with myself. How could a God of a universe, creating the stars, why would you give a burden like this to somebody? Like, that's not any loving God that I would want to serve. But I was angry. I was very, very angry. Just for him for me to be picked for a test like that. So one day, I broke down and I was like, okay, so I'm going to have to go through the process regardless. If you have to take him like this, because I knew at one point, just by I knew Jabez was gone a while ago. I could feel something missing inside of myself. You know what I'm saying? I just could feel it. It's almost like you're missing a lung or I don't know how to explain it, but you know that something is gone. And I told God, I said, you know, if you're going to give me this pain, at least give it some type of purpose. You know what I'm saying? So that's why, you know, we created the Jabez Spann Foundation, because even though Jabez is considered a murder case, I could be upset about the murder, but the murder doesn't do as much to me as when he was missing. That's just it's a totally different element of pain that most people cannot understand, and it's torturing. And I talk to these women, I talk to these parents that have been missing their children for 9 and 10 years. I went to events where the one lady was missing her child since 1978, a void inside of her since 1978, and she still cried as though she lost that baby yesterday. People do not know the significance and the magnitude of the pain that comes with missing children. And I found mine, but what about the rest of these parents? What about the siblings? You know, What about all these children that have to go through? They don't even know how to process this. As adults, we don't know how to process it. So I'm going to devote myself to keeping awareness, you know, in the forefront, prevention, recovery, resources, whatever we have to do. Jabez is going to help in a lot of different ways. We've put together workshops that we've did in front of educators. We're supposed to go back and do some more educators. We did for Mother's Day, we did a Mother's Day giveaway for missing children's moms, that, you know, just to let them know they're not forgotten, just to let them know that somebody else is thinking of them in that moment. Because when I was looking for Jabez, I went through all our resources, credit cards maxed out. I'm talking about, it was hard. I was literally on fumes looking for him. Quit my job because I couldn't sit there in an office. I'm looking at people giggling and kikiing around me, and I just want to cry because I don't know what's going on. I'm on the phone with the detectives like 24/7. Nobody can concentrate on a job like that. And people have to go, people don't understand that these people have to go on a regular basis with this on top of life. Life is already stressful, but on top of life, you have to have this enormous burden. And it's really not real to people until a story is told, until somebody's drawn in. But what I'm trying to tell people is that we can kind of prevent this also, but we also need to, for the people that are going through this, we need to let people know that there's other people there for them. So this is becoming an epidemic. Sex trafficking is on the rise. We have organ harvesting. I mean, this is not going away. This is becoming a big business. And if people don't really open their eyes to it, it's not like we're losing a set of keys. We're losing whole human beings. That's a whole different ballpark. You wake up tomorrow and one of your kids are just disappeared out of your house. It doesn't, I guess it doesn't set well until it's hitting home, but it's hitting home to a lot of different places, especially minority communities, because nobody cares as much about, and I'm not throwing the race card. This is from experience what I'm speaking from. Nobody's doing. Jabez had a lot of exposure, and I thank God for that. But there's a lot of minority children that's not getting that exposure like that. I had, and I'm not going to mention any names, but it was 2 cases that happened while Jabez first came up missing. One was right in the same county we were in. This was a voluntary kidnapping. It really wasn't even a kidnapping. She went on her own. All over major news. I mean major news. And then I see this other college kid. She comes up missing. They did find her remains, but I'm looking at her on these major, and I'm also getting in contact with these major news companies, and I'm asking them, hey, can we do a story on this? And he didn't fit the criteria. He didn't fit the criteria.
So what was the response when you approached them with Jabez's story? What happened?
They said that they couldn't do it because my private investigator wouldn't talk, and he couldn't talk at that time because it was still an investigation going on, and he couldn't get on camera.
So how did that make you feel?
It doesn't have a geographic standpoint. It doesn't have, it's not like, it's not like a zip code type of thing or area code type of thing. When someone comes up missing or when someone takes a child, they're not looking at whether or not your parents went to PTA or if your mom was in prison. They don't care about that. But I can tell you, every child, no matter where, what color, creed, background, whatever they have, they deserve the same exposure as any other child. So it was hard for me not to it was hard for me not to say the race thing a little bit, because both of those cases were not African American children, not melanated children, I would say.
Okay.
And I'm not saying they didn't deserve the exposure. I would never say anything like that. I'm just saying it should be equal across the board. There's just as many. I mean, Washington D.C. has an outpour of missing children right now, of melanated children, and we don't hear anything about them at all. It's a lot of people missing children right now. And because they don't have maybe the right resources or the right strings to pull, or maybe they don't know the person that know the person that know the person, their children that doesn't get exposed. We got to be better than that. We got to be better than that. We could save so much more children if it was so much more. I mean, even with the Amber Alert, a lot of people was like, why didn't Jabez go up under the Amber Alert? Because the Amber Alert is it has pretty strict rules, but because he was not under immediate danger, there was no need to, but the Amber Alert might have saved him, because it would have went into different places and made more people alert, and they might have seen something that, you know what I mean? And somebody might have seen something and say, hey, I seen this little boy, And so right now I'm on a mission. I know I can't save the world. We're merging with some human trafficking organizations. We're not going to stop. I don't care if I got to put just a dent in the mountain. That's fine with me. But I'm going to keep pushing, and I would advise all other parents of missing children also, if this is something that hits your spirit, it's strength in numbers. It's strength in numbers.
When it comes to when your son was found, how far away from home were his remains located? Were they way far away, or just like close, not too far from home? I'm just curious.
They were in the county over.
So what, about an hour away or something like that?
No, about 20 minutes. 20 minutes.
About 20 minutes away from home.
Yeah, I was probably maybe 200 feet away from Jabez, maybe 100 feet away from him. And it's two crazy things. The car that they took from Travis, Jabez was, they took it somewhere and they burned it. He was right down the road from the car.
Wow. Mm-hmm. How many searches did you do? Did you have any indication of, like, what about people who came out to help? Tell me about your searches and how all of that went.
Well, at first we had about maybe 60 people. It went down after a while. It definitely wasn't like the searches that I see on TV for missing children, but we had for the support that we had, I thank God for it. And after a while, it got back to me that they were sending certain individuals out to find out where we were searching. So I had to make the searches private.
Okay.
So it went from all of those people to just me and the private investigator. And when I say it's unreal how much land I've covered in Sarasota, Bradenton, Palmetto, and all of these, even Venice, Northport. I have almost every day I was up about 9 or 10 searching all day until about 7 o'clock in the morning.
What are police telling you right now that you can say in this podcast?
That's the problem. They're very tight-lipped on this one. They're very tight-lipped.
Well, did they at least, are they saying that they're getting leads or anything of any kind? I mean, at the very least?
Yeah, they do have some things that they're going off of right now. They do have some things that they're going off of right now, but I can't, they won't really inform me of everything that's going on. And in a sense, I'm okay with that, because I will say something about Sarasota County. When I say they made this case personal, I've literally seen emotion from the captains to the detective to the FBI agents. I'm talking about this case was like personal to them. It almost seemed like at one point like Jabez belonged to everybody in the Sarasota County Police Force. And I honestly, people like, I don't think the police did enough. I know how many people I had on my side when I was searching for my son. I know the community can say what they don't think was happening, but if you were involved, then you probably would have known what was going on. But since y'all separated yourself from me, it was only a couple resources that I had, and Sarasota Police Department was definitely one of them. So everybody's like trying to throw the blame. Oh, they wouldn't have did. Y'all, none of you guys are talking. Nobody's talking in the community. So how are you going to throw a bomb at the police when they trying to do the best they can without the resources that they should have from the community? Y'all should be you guys should have been able to step in and help them with this case. But y'all, they left us out high to dry. So it wasn't like, I don't really, when people say something about Sarasota Police Department in the Jabez Spann case, I don't want to hear it.
So tell me about Jabez. What was he like? What did he like to do? What were his dreams and aspirations? Just so people can have a perspective of what was like as a person.
Very, very lively. The All-American boy, like the football player, the quarterback, he just was all boy. He wrestled with his friends. He was the leader of his teams, like loved to joke around, prank people. He was just a very stand-up type of little guy, and everybody just thought, I literally, in my head, I thought he was going to the NFL. And it's not because I'm just like this mom, like, oh, my baby was good. No, Jabez at one point was carrying whole teams by himself. Like one of the teams that he played for after he came up missing, they literally had to shut the team down because they couldn't function the team without Jabez. So wow. He played. He was so excited because he wanted to play for Sarasota High. That was his thing, because everybody wanted him to go to Review, but he kept saying he wanted to go to Sarasota High. And football was just his life. He was always carrying around a football, always just sports, period. And his friends, I thought at that time, absolutely adored him. I really did. They were over to my mom's house all the time. I thought they were all just like brothers, but when it all came down to it, that was not the case.
Was he was a good student too? Was he involved in any other activities? Was he an honor roll student or anything like that? I'm just curious about what his academic.
He was a pretty decent student. He actually was the teacher's assistant when he came up missing. He was a teacher's assistant. His teacher kind of took it, really hard, because Jabez was really trying to. He was assisting and helping other students in the classroom.
So tell me about the impact of his disappearance and murder and what that has done to your family, the structure of your family, and how you guys function now.
I can say I do think now it's now starting to be some healing, but when it was like going through it, like one of my brothers, he had stopped drinking for like 15, 16 years, and he relapsed off of it. It just was a lot of turmoil. My sister was angry. It was tearing everybody apart. Nobody could really focus. My mom was down to like 100 pounds. Like her appetite, because that she's had him since he was 4 or 5 months old, and he always, that's granny, like, and he told her, when I make it, I'm gonna buy you a big old beautiful home. She always said that's when he was missing. It's a ripple effect. When people make a decision to kill or to kidnap children or anybody at that matter, but children, it's not, the decision you make isn't just affecting that one point. It just affects a whole slew of things. Like, the community was in an uproar. Everybody was being questioned, and people were stepping back because they thought I was too aggressive because I'm trying to find out questions. And I mean, I literally think, like, I know that they couldn't have realized how much an effect it was going to be when they made the decision to kill Travis. Travis was like the catapult of everything. But when they killed Jabez, it really made it worse for them. That was probably the worst decision they could have made out of the whole situation. And they're going to find that out. They're going to find that out soon. That was probably the worst mistake they probably could have made. They would have been better off just feeding him candy for the rest of his life.
I know that when we were talking before, you said you kind of had an interesting relationship with the media, and how you in different interviews and things like that, and kind of how you have the relationship that you had. So talk to me about that, and why you think it's important for you to really express yourself in this interview right now.
When Jabez was missing, a lot of people were basically saying because of my past, that's why he died. And people, I don't think people realize the effect of words. I don't think or if they're even thinking at the time of speaking. So I did an interview, a brief interview with Nancy Grace, because I didn't trust the media. Sometimes the media can take what you're trying to display and turn it into something totally different than what you need to say. So I was very cautious on who I talked to. And on top of that, I didn't want everybody to know exactly what I was doing. So I kept myself very tight-knit, as in expressing myself. So I was talking to Nancy Grace, and her entourage is awesome, first of all. And they've done an enormous amount for Jabez. But I was talking, when they first got in contact with me, it was one of the reporters, and before she could even get it out, I told him, I said, listen, Jabez was born in prison. And she asked me, she was like, why did you tell me that? I told her, I said, first of all, the first thing they come to do is tear down the character of the people that's hurting. What does my past have to do with somebody killing him? Those two don't even go together.
What is that time frame? And so people are clear about what you went to jail for and the time span between when you were in prison and had that other life going on compared to when your son passed away. Can you just clarify that? Because some people may think those things are related. They could just assume that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I went to prison in 2002. Jabez was born in 2002. I went because I was young and foolish, and I was making bad decisions that had nothing to do with my upbringing. It didn't have anything to do with but what my environment was. And it took me a while to get away from a lot of stuff like that. But A lot of people always say, hey, I want to see you do better, but when they see you doing better, they always want to suck you back into that, oh, what about when? But I want to clarify that whatever I did had no bearing on what happened with Jabez. It just wasn't a decision of mine. If any decision would have been made about what happened to Jabez, he'd still be here. I wouldn't even be talking to anybody. I probably wouldn't even be an advocate for missing children, because I wouldn't know how it felt. So I tell that to people. This is one reason, because I was talking to an executive director for missing children in Missouri, awesome lady, and I told her the same thing. So just in case people work with me, they don't have a surprise on who I was. They know that who they're working with has been through some things, and this is where I'm going forward from. If you have to hold my past against me, then you don't need to work with me anyways, because I have a vision to help others, and I can't be standing in the past or explaining that to everybody. I can tell you what it is, and I can keep going forward. It's not just one type of person it's affecting. You know what I'm saying? I'm still a mom. No matter what I went through in my life, it still hurts me to this day what has happened to Jabez, and that shouldn't have effect on what I've been through. It's like they turn it into, instead of me being the victim, I'm the person that should be taking the blame, and that's not right. I do understand through this whole process I've dealing with different people and different mind frames. People are silly and they're ignorant sometimes, and they say things that they really don't realize that can really transform someone's life if they're not tough enough.
So what would you say to people in the community who do have information, who have not come forward? What are your words for those folks?
If you think that there is a person out here that has killed one person and then came behind and killed another person, and the second one is a child, if you rather for that to run around the community than to not speak up, I would say that doesn't make sense. You have we got, as a community, and I didn't understand it, we got a responsibility of the children in our neighborhoods, you know. And if you're teaching your children, oh, well, he shouldn't have been talking, or this is, it's all it is it's going to backfire. I'm waiting for this. I'm not waiting, but I'm almost for certain that I will be hearing about either another situation that has something to do with these people shortly. Because once they get a hope to that taste of blood, they think they're invincible right now. Mm-hmm. And if the community has anything to say or any information you're holding back, you're helping them to make themselves invincible. That's all I'm going to say on. And what's going to happen is somebody else's child is going to end up getting hurt, because Jabez was not in agreement to what they wanted to do. So if there's another child that's not in agreement with what they want to do, it's going to be just as easy, because now they feel like they know what to do and how to get rid of a child or any human being. I've asked before. If you want me to ask again, I mean, if you come and give information. If not, if you don't want to give information just because of Jabez, give information just to get them off the streets. That's just give some information and give them off the street. If they did something else and it's not related to Jabez, give that information. Just get them off the streets. I'm gonna get closure one way or the other. I know that it's not something that I've ever doubted. I'm gonna get closure, but I'm telling the community that you guys need to take them off the streets. This is reckless behavior, and it's like no compassion towards human life at all. Travis had one son, and his son has to grow up without a father now.
Tell me about your shirt and the Jabez Spann Foundation.
So all the children, if one piece is missing, we're missing a piece of the puzzle. So that's why we call it piecing in the puzzle, because every child makes a piece of the puzzle to make the puzzle complete. So we did an event. It was an awareness event. We had all sorts of vendors come out, from mentoring to child safety kits, human trafficking. We just had a whole bunch of people come out, and we did dedications to all the fallen angels, anybody that was killed by violence in the community. We had a roll call for them, to honor them. We also had a mother come out that actually, while Jabez came up missing Labor Day, her son came up missing Memorial Day, and she came out to speak. And it was crazy because they found a body before a couple months before Jabez, and didn't even know it was her son until after Jabez was buried. So she came out and spoke. The piecing of the puzzle also goes with a workshop that we've put together and created. So the workshop actually tells the story of a couple other missing children that have made an impact on missing children's community. Then we go into prevention on things that we can do, and we have a police or detective come out and from their standpoint tell them what they do for the community, just in case anybody comes up missing in there. So then we do a recovery, and the recovery is one of the major parts for me, because a lot of people don't realize that there has to be, at some point, even if your child is missing, everybody that goes through that needs to see some type of counseling, some type of help to process their feelings, to process what they're going through, and have someone to, effectively say, hey, it's okay, because you're angry, you're sad, and it's just a lot of different emotions. So we have that, and we also have a children's book called Where's My Brother? And it's from the perspective of children, because I think that most people don't really understand. Even though my kids were older, when I went to the missing children's in Florida, I seen these siblings, these little kids that were just walking around, and they had the shirts of their brother on, and the parents had the t-shirts, and I'm thinking to myself, like, whoa, like, what do you tell these kids? How do they process that at being such a young age? So I wrote a book that addresses, it's from a 10-year-old perspective about how it must look to see their family kind of go downhill, and the feelings that they feel as though that when they're seeing their mom and their father, and how their brother's missing and stuff like that. The Jabez Foundation is really trying to hit the hearts of most people that most of the time they wouldn't. Like, the reason for this interview is because people have to sometimes feel. It's hard for you to see. I grew up with looking at kids on missing children milk cartons, and you know what I'm talking about. So it's like we see those, but we can't attach a feeling to those. But when I get on here, and I literally, when we first started this interview, I was drained, because every time I go through reliving it, it literally takes like so much out of you. But I'm also hoping that projects to other people and let them feel that I'm a human, and these are real feelings, and it needs to be transferred to other individuals, that this is just a different type of pain. So with our foundation, we're hoping to hit a lot of different areas. I mean, like I said, I have so many different contacts right now that we're trying to work with and get things together and get us out and about for people to know what we're really trying to do.
Is there anything that you would have done differently, that you wish you could have done differently?
A lot of stuff, but it's one thing. I know this probably might not seem, it's very vague to anybody else, but it just so stands out to me. We were working with a median, a psychic, right? And the picture the psychic drew, it was saying that Jabez was on the side of the canal. We were trying to look for canals to find him on the side of this canal that they, they might have had buried in it or dumped him in or something. And I'm like, what canal? What? So we were on the maps and everything. Jabez was found on the side of Canal Road.
Ooh.
And the median said that Jabez was telling him where he was.
Wow.
Jabez was found on the side of, he was telling us that he was on the side of Canal Road. We thought he was saying he was on the side of the canal. So I wish I could have looked at it a little different in another eye perspective.
You guys really did try everything. You went to the medium and everything.
I had so many people. I still have women right now that just reaches out to me, and one of them have told me that he can't go forward until I get healed, until I'm healed, until I let it go, until I find out what's going on. And that kind of bothers me because I don't want him to be, if that is so, I wouldn't want him to be caught somewhere because I'm not okay. I'll be okay when somebody tells me what happened to my child. That's when I'll be okay.
Is there any one message that you want people to take away from this entire interview? Just that one thing.
Please be aware of the people that have missing children. They suffer a whole different pain than most people. They walk around, and I can't express to you what pain it is, but I can tell you I've been there. And for them to go through that on a daily basis, we have to bring some type of light to that. We have to give them some type of an opening door, letting people know that they still exist and there's resources and there's people pushing for them, because it's such a lonely place to be in. And just little things, even if it's Christmas, even if it's just stuff for their children, back to school, anything that would make their burden easier while enduring what they have to endure, that's what we need to be focused on. And definitely focus on the victims of sex trafficking.
Just on the closing note, I know I haven't talked much, but one of the key things that it boils down to, life is extremely valuable and it's extremely precious. It doesn't come with an instruction book. It doesn't come with a guide. So we really have to take our time with people, especially our children, especially the generation that we're leaving this world for. Just know life is precious, and everybody you encounter may not be the best for you, may not be safe for you. So be aware of your surroundings, be aware for your children's sake, because nobody ever thinks this is going to happen to them. Never. And we hear stories and they go in one ear and they go right out the other, and they don't stick. And I say that because I'm guilty of it. We've all heard of missing kids and we felt the emotion at the moment, and then it's gone. But it never really leaves the person that it affects, and it's starting to affect more and more and more people. So just take time, appreciate life, appreciate your loved ones while we can, because you don't know. You just don't know. It could be tomorrow and your life has changed.
The one thing that I've taken away from all of this so far, and all the people I've talked to, is that they just want to know that people care. They just want to know that people are thinking about their loved one. They just want to know that their loved one is not forgotten. Do you think that's right? Do you agree with that?
I think that's very true. I think that's one of the main things. Because I conversate with so many missing children, moms and parents, and sometimes I just call to check to see if they're okay, because I've gotten close to some of them, and that's one of the things that they say, like, it seemed like they forgot about my baby. And I understand that after a while for police, it's probably harder to do as much when you run into a brick wall. I understand that. But there's other ways to let people know that you're not forgotten. I'm trying to put a retreat together right now, so for a whole weekend, to pamper like seven families for a whole weekend, just to let them know you're not forgotten. We're honoring your children, and there's somebody that's there for you. That means a lot. And I mean, when I was going through everything I was going through, I literally felt like I was in the world by myself, even though I had people around me, and I knew that everybody couldn't understand what I was feeling, but I felt alone. And one of the main things that made me happy was the missing children event in Florida. Just for them they treated us to dinner. They made sure that it was something about them pointing out, hey, we want to let you guys know that nobody has forgotten about you. And that's important. That's important. So we want to be one of those organizations that do that. I mean, I don't care if it's food they need, if it's rent, whatever it is, if we can get the resource to them, that's exactly what we're trying to pinpoint right now. And for all missing children's parents, you are phenomenal people. It's just an honor to be in the presence of any of you with the strength and the things that you endure. And I mean that from the bottom of my heart. I really do.
When it comes to my final thoughts about this case, I'm left with so many questions. Family members are convinced that Jabez was murdered and knew his killers. Now the question is, where did his death actually happen and when? And was Jabez killed because he saw something and said something? And were there any witnesses during his disappearance? I also think about how Tawana has taken her tragedy and is working to do something good in her son's name. Media reports say that over 100 tips came in about the case. Another note is that Tawana did say that detectives have been tight-lipped about details in the case. So the question is, at what point will they make an arrest? I reached out to Sarasota Police about the case, and as of this podcast, I have not gotten a response, and they have not confirmed his cause of death or how they're investigating his case. I will keep an eye on this case and bring you updates as I get them in, and I also wish the family the best in their work with their new foundation. If there's a case that you want me to check out, just message me on the Intrigued Full Effect website or via email at intriguedfulleffect@hotmail.com. Until next time, be safe and stay true. The views, information, or opinions expressed during the Intrigued Full Effect, Curious Cases, Disappearances, and Other Stuff podcast are solely those of the individuals involved and do not necessarily represent those of the host. The primary purpose of this podcast is to educate and inform. The host of this podcast assumes no liability or responsibility for any activities in connection with opinions shared in the podcast. The podcast and blog associated with it shall not be used in any legal capacity or as a basis for expert testimony. Any copyright material in the podcast is approved by the owner or is part of the public domain. Music by Pond 5.